Hello, everyone, and welcome to this new edition of Message of Hope. And today, directly from Bedford in the UK, we have the privilege to have Sorrel Pindar, who is a mental wealth coach and also a specialist in post-traumatic growth. Welcome, Pindar. Sorrel, sorry.
That's okay, Martin.
We'll keep it Monday mornings, I guess. So I will ask you the infamous question. And the infamous question is, how does having this three principle understanding, how does that help you navigate problems, events, circumstances, whatever shows up in your life?
Okay, it's a good question. Excellent question. Do you know what? I think I'd like to use the first day of the lockdown in this country as an example. And I believe it was a Monday or a Tuesday in March. And I can remember waking up in the morning and hearing the news and, oh my God, the world is ending. And I went into this panic and thinking, oh, well, I can't work anymore. And how am I going to support myself? And all those sorts of panicky thoughts. And I don't remember how long it took, maybe an hour or so. And then I thought, oh, what's the big deal? It's an opportunity to just take some time for myself, tidy up my garden, and see what shows up. And then my head cleared. And I remember by lunchtime, I was thinking, oh, this is great. I'm looking forward to this week. And I remember Jamie Smart checked in with us because I was on his advanced clarity coach training course at the time. And he wanted to make sure that we were all okay. And we all had different things to report about that day. But for me, it was like, I think it was the thing that helped me the most was having this understanding. Because when you know where your feelings come from, then you don't think it's because of what let's call it the wrong Prime Minister's name, Mr. Johnson said on the television. It's because of your thinking about what Mr. Johnson said in the news that morning. So that's one thing. And I think the other thing that's been massive for me is that I actually met my partner about a month before that lockdown. So it was a very new relationship. And I can remember thinking, well, a number of things. First of all, I thought, I'm not going to argue with this man. I am not doing any more arguing. And my sister and her husband had exactly the same thing when they got married for their second marriage, as it were. And just thinking, I don't know how it's going to play out. I don't know what's down the road for us. And thinking it's a bit like getting on a train, but you don't know where you're going to get off. I might go from Bedford to Kettering, I might end up in Sheffield. And just that, I was okay with that because I was okay with not knowing, and I was okay with waiting to see what showed up, and whatever happened, it would be all right. And I knew I would be okay. And I think one of the reasons that I knew that so in such a sort of embodied way was because that was 2020, and I guess I met Jamie Smart in 2017. He was my introduction to the principles. So it was getting up about not quite 3 years. So I started to see my life and myself and other people very differently from how I'd seen it in the past. And I know that I said, I don't want to argue. I just don't want that to be part of this relationship, or whatever it turns out to be. I guess by the time we got to the point where we were thinking, is this a relationship, not just a couple of people meeting for a drink sort of thing. And I thought I could just accept him. You know, if he isn't exactly the way I want my ideal partner to be, that's fine. He's what he is, and I can accept that. And he has done the same for me. And that's immensely freeing because we don't argue. We get on really well, and he has some foibles, shall we say, and they're fine. In fact, I've got quite fond of them. And we don't argue about how fast you're on the tap when you're washing up, which my ex-husband used to do. Because there's that whole thing about separate realities, isn't there? And our realities are not entirely aligned, but that's fun. Actually, that makes life far more interesting. If we were carbon copies of each other, it would be really boring. And then I'd say it's kind of impacted my life in so many ways. My relationships with my daughters are probably better than they would be if I hadn't come to this understanding. And when they don't go very well, I don't get panicked about it because I think, oh, well, this is where we are now, but it will change and this will pass. And I can sort of, I guess from that calmer space, I can move things forward more easily. Like I can open up to them, or enable them to open up to me, and so on. What else? And work. It made when I was still working as an osteopath, which I was until the end of April this year. That really deep understanding that everybody has innate health was massive, because once I started to really grasp that and feel it in that embodied way, my patients got better faster. Because I suppose when I have the faith in their innate healing, even I would sometimes say it to them and sometimes I wouldn't, because some people that would be so woo-woo that they wouldn't want to hear it, but that doesn't really matter. What matters is that it's there in the room, I suppose. And of course, the same thing with my clients, my coaching clients. And then just that ability to, well, sometimes things aren't going very well. Like, you get the odd month when you don't earn very much, or you think, oh my God. And then you think, no, I'm not going to be on Skid Row next month. Don't worry, this is just a passing phase. And I guess I hold everything much more lightly than I used to. I think that's a big part of it, actually. I was listening to a Sid Banks recording this morning, and he's talking about, just don't take yourself so seriously. Because when you're serious about, when you have serious thoughts, then you get serious feelings. When you have serious feelings, it all gets very serious, and that's not much fun, is it? So just that ability to not take things seriously in that way, and I suppose just to hold everything lightly and wait and see how it plays out. That's been huge. It just takes so much off my mind.
It is liberating.
It is really liberating. Yeah. I have to say, it often does not work at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Well, we're still human being. I mean,
exactly. Yeah. That one is a challenge I have yet to master. I'm getting better at it. But I kind of know that if I'm starting to worry about stuff at 3 in the morning, once I spot what I'm doing, I can say, wait a minute, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. You're not thinking clearly now. You're just going to have a lot of rubbish thoughts going through your mind, and then endeavor to connect with the mattress in a deeper way so that I can go back to sleep.
Or imagine you put them in a bath and you pull the plug, and then all those thoughts are draining away.
Oh, I should try that next time. Thank you, Martina. Yeah. It's a really interesting thing, because I was, and this may not mean anything to you, but I was raised as a Quaker. So when I think I was about 13 years old, my mother discovered her local Quaker meeting where we grew up. A friend took her there, having rejected the Methodist Church because they were preaching hellfire and damnation. And there's a sort of one of the kind of, we don't have a creed, but we do believe that the expression is that of God in everyone. And I'd always thought of God as being kind of this little bit of something inside you, but it wasn't who you were. And so I could have had this sort of image of like being able to reach into that bit of God and connect with it if I needed to. And at some point, actually, I know when it was when I did James' advanced course, I had some mentoring with Chip Chipman, which was amazing. There was one week, I don't remember what we were talking about, and I suddenly had the image of an oyster with a pearl. And I suddenly thought, I'm not the oyster, I'm the pearl, because I see myself as the oyster and the pearl as that divine something. And when I realized that the oyster is just just the human body that I'm inhabiting, if you like, but I am a pearl. And then the metaphor of the wave and the ocean, that the wave is the ocean. There's a the Zen Buddhist master Thich Nhat Hanh. Come across him? Yeah, he has something about enlightenment is when you realize that, and when the wave realizes that it is the ocean. And I guess that kind of almost sums it up. And I forget. Oh, so then sorry.
Probably why your clients are getting better. Sorry to interrupt you, because we're all one.
Yeah, we're all one.
Your faith in them has an impact because
we're all one.
We're all one.
Yeah. And actually, I see that happening a lot. That kind of, as if, it's like, you might call it mind reading, or we might have done it in the past. Called it mind reading, but actually, it's just that fact that we are all one. So things arise in different places at the same time because it's all connected. That kind of web. Yeah. So I guess what I was saying was that I grew up with that understanding, but so it was kind of already there in a way. It's just that it suddenly blossomed something much more amazing. And actually, I actually find it quite challenging to bring the principles back to the Quaker meeting. It's interesting that it's like my imposter syndrome or something, because I sit there thinking, these people believe they're separate, but I don't feel like I have the authority to tell them they're not.
Sit down when I give you the good news.
Yeah, quite. I can't do that. Anyway.
Well, thank you, Sorrel, for your time and for your wisdom. And can you plug your little conference in November?
Oh, my summit. Okay, so I am organizing a mini summit. A lot of summits, they have so many speakers, it's overwhelming. And they say, oh, of course, you can have all the recordings if you don't mind, spending X amount of dollars on it. And I thought, I will have one speaker an evening so that people can come and be there and at the time, or they can have the recording if they can't be there at the time. And we're going to start on Friday, November the 18th. And Jamie Smart is going to be like the keynote speaker to kick it off. And then I've got 5 speakers the following week. And if you want, I can tell you who they are.
Yes.
Yes. So I have got Rani Bora, who's a holistic psychiatrist, who is going to talk, and she's another 3, it's only one person, not a 3-piece practitioner in this group. Rani's going to be talking about mental wealth. She invented the term mental wealth. I just borrowed it from her. And innate health. And because she's been a traditional psychiatrist and then moved into the principles, she's got a lovely contrast between the kind of medical model and the holistic model. I don't know about the order of these days. I forget which round they come. But then we have somebody called Julie Finn, who's another Jamie Smart protege, who's going to be talking about embodied coaching and how trauma always strikes twice. Because generally speaking, if you're traumatized in your adulthood, you were probably traumatized as a child in some way. And then we've got Wayne Fletcher, another Jamie Smart protege, talking about men's mental health. He's a Samaritans volunteer. He's a deputy director of his local Samaritans. And so his main interest is about suicide prevention in men. Then there's Nupi Aurora, who is not a 3-piece practitioner. She's a holistic GP, who's done a lot of work with people with domestic violence in their lives. And then finally, a guy called David Bird, another Jamie Smart protege, who's going to talk about addiction. So that's 6 speakers over 6 nights, and it'll be 7 o'clock every evening British. It will be GMT by that point, so UK time. And I will when I've got something when I've got a link for it, I'll send it over to you, Martine. Because
Thank you.
currently I'm ready up. Well, thank you. I really enjoyed that.
And if people want to find you, where can they find you?
My website is sorrelpindar.co.uk. Email hello@sorrelpindar.co.uk. And I'm on LinkedIn, and I'm the only Sorrel Pindar in the world, so I'm very easy to find.
Your parents made it easy.
Yeah, they did.
There's another Martine Brisson, who's a designer in Montreal, and I used to get her emails.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, right. They don't want me to design their houses, that's for sure. Okay, so thank you very much, Sarah.
Thank you. I really enjoyed that. Thanks so much.